What's up, guys? Today we're going to check out the 1996 classic Twister on 4K Blu-ray. This is one of the original movies that actually got me into home theater and surround sound when it first came out on DVD. And now that we've got an official release from Warner Brothers, what better way to watch this movie than on one of the best TVs out there? From today's channel sponsor, LG.
I want to take a minute to thank today's sponsor, LG. We all want our movies to look as good or better than they do at the theaters. And with an LG OLED, it'll look better. OLED pixels emit their own light for perfect black levels with shadow details you've probably been missing out on with a conventional LCD LED TV. They've got infinite contrast and can produce a billion rich colors. You can get them in 4K resolution, or if you want the crispiest, sharpest image possible with over 33 million pixels, an LG 8K OLED will deliver a truly outstanding cinematic experience. To simplify your movie watching, LG Smart WebOS TV has all the major content streaming apps and will be upgraded for years to come, giving you updated performance for up to 5 years. All of this performance is handled by LG's powerful AI processing to give you the best smart features and the ultimate 4K and 8K video and audio quality. From 42 inches up to 97 inches, there is an LG OLED for everyone. If you're interested in grabbing an LG TV, you can find links down below in this video's description.
And thanks to LG for sponsoring today's video. I'm not here to talk about how good or bad this movie is. I'm just going to share some thoughts on the audio and video quality. Now let's go over a few tech specs. The movie was shot on 35mm film. It's got a 4K DI. It's rated PG-13. Runtime is 113 minutes. Aspect ratio is 239:1, and the audio gets a fresh new Dolby Atmos mix. Before we take a look at the audio and see how active this mix is, if you don't know what the Atmos viewer is, you can find a link down below in this video's description that tells you all about it, what it does, and where to get it. You can also find a list of all the gear that I use for these 4K reviews down there as well. When that German version of Twister came out, about a year or so ago, I remember putting it in and I could just tell that it was not a very good Atmos mix. I'm glad to report that this is an official Warner mix supervised by the director himself, Jan de Bont, as well as the video. First thing to note is that this is essentially locked into a 7.1.4 layout. So your wide channels, second set of surround channels, and the extra 4 top channels won't be active. Only the middle row of top channels will be used. So if you're going to watch this movie and you've got 6 tops, I'd select the 4 top channel preset before watching this. That said, this sounds better than a lot of newer mixes released today. Right from the opening, it's still got that swirling wind that rotates around your room with that low rumble that we're all familiar with. And if you hadn't noticed, there are no moving objects in this, but I assure you it's still got plenty of channel movement. A scene that I watched all the time on DVD comes in at 32 minutes when the truck is driving through that ditch. As the camera angles pan from left to right, the sound of the truck also follows in the corresponding LCRs, all while the Twister is growling in the background. Anytime there's a Twister on screen, there's debris that flies through every one of your available speakers, whether it's in the lower channels or the height channels. And this all sounds very natural. They didn't just take the surround channels and mirrored them in the top channels, so all the effects sound like they have an on-screen purpose. As for the bass response, I wouldn't say this digs as deep as, say, Furiosa or any one of the Dune movies, but it's still got enough extension to rattle your windows. So anytime the twisters are on screen, mixed with the twisting sound effects, it all gels really well together. And some of the best parts are the quieter scenes, where it's just the crackling of thunder that sounds as if it's really outside of your house. I had to mute the volume just to check and be sure that it wasn't actually real. Now this mix is essentially 11 channels for, I'd say, about 99.99% of the time, although there are 2 moments where all 18 of my speakers are active. The boat flying towards the screen in Chapter 18, and of course, the flying cow.
Cow, I gotta go, Julia, we got cows.
As for video quality, since this was shot on 35mm, there is a fine to medium layer of grain throughout. It gets a little grainier when there are CG effects on screen, most likely to help blend live action and digital together, so if you're a grain hater, you probably won't like the way this transfer looks. Luckily, it did not get the James Cameron treatment. Now, this isn't a 4K crispy transfer, so you won't be counting fibers on clothing and counting nose hairs, although there are some static shots or shots where there's little movement where you can make out pores and wrinkles until they move and then their faces become soft. And there are some nice clean textures on clothing. The CG effects for that time period is obviously softer looking, but I felt that it still holds up really well today and doesn't look so noticeably out of place like with stuff that you get with some of these Marvel movies. This is also not a particularly bright movie. It's got a max CLL of 995 and a max FALL of 693. For most of the runtime, it always has a somewhat dim overcast look for obvious reasons. Therefore, this isn't going to be an HDR showcase to highlight your LG OLED's nit rating. The color palette is mostly muted tones with greens, browns, and grays, although there is some nice HDR pop with the explosion and some reflective surfaces. Black levels were solid with good shadow detail, if not so ever slightly raised, and highlight detail never came across too overcooked. The only real noticeable oddity is that frozen frame at the start of the movie, which even on the DVD was there as well. Overall, this is probably the best this movie's ever gonna look, and it is the best it's ever looked. It's got that natural grainy appearance with tasteful HDR. It's not a 4K showcase by any means, but if you are a fan of the movie, it's a must-own. I'm gonna go 8.9 for video. For audio, after hearing that other Atmos version of Twister that's floating around out there, I was kinda worried for this one. But this one did exceed my expectations with a very natural, expansive soundstage that is better than most modern Atmos mixes. The bass could be a tad hotter, but it is a fantastic new Atmos mix that's active from start to finish with dialogue that's always easy to hear. I'm gonna go 9.6 for audio. So what are your thoughts on this new transfer of Twister on 4K Blu-ray? Leave your thoughts down below and let me know. Now, if you do want to pick up this movie, I'll leave some links for it down below in the video's description. As always, guys, thanks for watching. If you want, you can follow us on social media, and if you want to support the channel and get exclusive content or great discounts on audio and video gear, then stop by our Patreon page. Be sure to like this video if you found it useful and subscribe if you haven't already. And I'll see you again in the next one.